Hello, my name is Bethany Couture, and you are watching a New York State music interview series called Local Limelight. Today, I am sitting with Rob Mount, distinguished drummer for Lou Gramm, Nelson, scrap metal, and camp counselor for the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. Rob is a Rochester native who started studying percussion at the Hochstein School of Music at the age of 7. Very impressive. Where he studied under famed drummer Vincent Ruggiero.
Yeah, Vinny Ruggiero. Yeah.
So, Rob, what inspired you to study percussion at such a young age?
Well, it'd probably be beating on my parents' pots and pans when I was 4. I just started banging on things, and we used to get. You're too young to remember, but we used to get these you know chips that came in a can. They were called Charles chips, and used to get them. They're like a big round can, like a mini garbage can, and they made perfect drums. So before I got my first drums, I would just beat on the chips, the cans, killing my parents' ears that way. And I guess they figured out sooner or later that there was something there, and started signing me up for drum lessons right around 7 years old. So
I love that.
yeah,
So it's always something that was inside you that you just pulled out.
yeah, because nobody in my family, my parents, nobody plays a musical instrument, so I can't really explain where it came from. I don't have a family history of musicians, so I don't know. I just started beating on things. So that's how I got going. I started with lessons, and I took lessons all the way through college. I studied all the way up to. I didn't finish college. I decided when I was in college I didn't want to be a music teacher per se. I just it's like that isn't. I wanted to rock. I didn't want to. I don't want to, go, okay, first bassoon, you now. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yeah, I can't. It's not me. So I didn't finish, but yeah, I always took lessons. I was in orchestras, I was in percussion ensembles, played in garage bands, took lessons, my whole life. So,
That's cool. So, did you have a profession before you were a professional musician?
well, I've always had day jobs, unfortunately in the music business and even in any entertainment business, it's not always steady work. It's not always you're not always making money or a lot of it. There's plenty of guys out there to this day that famous guys that have to have a day job of some sort. Their bands may be big, they may be selling records. Doesn't mean they're making a lot of money doing it. The music business, especially these days, it's really hard to make any money at all. So I've always had jobs. I worked in. My dad had his own pharmacy, so I started working in retail when I was like 14 years old, waiting the counter and ringing up cigarettes and newspapers to old ladies, and that was a lot of fun. I worked in sales for many years. I worked in high end audio stores. I have a truck driving license. I mean,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
That's,
So
that's actually kind of fun sounding.
well, I mean, driving a truck is kind of cool because you don't have to answer to anybody. You just drive down the road and crank tunes and talk on the phone and listen to podcasts and do whatever you want to do, and the point being is, even when I was with Lou, and even now that I'm playing with Nelson, I still have a day job. It's just reality. I don't think a lot of guys want to admit to that because it makes they want to say, "No, I'm a musician. I'm a professional musician," and that's cool. You can be, but that doesn't mean you're making a lot of money doing it. I mean, you have to pay the bills. And to me, there's nothing wrong with admitting that I have to work another job to exist.
There's nothing wrong. This is actually stuff I want people to understand because
Right.
that this is literally like part of what I'm aspiring to get out of people is that it's
Mhm.
not just there's a hustle. There's a hustle and a
Right.
flow and a delicate balance. I mean, I'm a photographer, videographer, and I experience all of the same because it's very similar symbiotic relationships. And no,
Hmm.
I've always had to have multiple hustles at once,
Yeah.
And so no, that's exactly what I want people to hear because it's a raw, honest truth, and I appreciate you
Mhm.
very much. So,
Yeah.
was there a decisive moment that showed you that you made it in the music industry?
That hasn't happened yet.
That's
No.
a lie.
Um,
I think that would be a lie.
well, I mean, all
That'd be
right.
a lie. I think you're being a little humble here. There's got to be a moment where you said, "Damn, I just made it. This is some pretty big shit."
Well, there's, I mean, I could say there's certain cool things that have happened, right? So back in 93, 94, my band Ramrod with Joe and Seb, we signed a record deal. Like we signed it and we had some really good demos and um we were getting things going. We started playing. We did one show here in Rochester and then they got the call to go to Overkill. And on top of that, the record company, which was in Europe, ran out of money, and they gave all the money to Anthrax singer Joey Belladonna, who had just went solo. He just left Anthrax in the like early mid '90s. So you could say, okay, well that's cool thing number one. At least I got a record deal. I can say I signed my name on the dotted line for that, and we started to get momentum. But then we know what just happened. I just told you. So a few years later, John Hahn, who you mentioned reading my bio, he called me and he said, "Hey, I have a deal in Japan. I did the whole record was done." And he said, but it needs a real drummer. He programmed the drums. He really did a good job of it, but needs a real drummer. Would you come down here in Pennsylvania and do it? So I went down and recorded the whole record in 2 days. And drums usually go down first. Usually drums the first instrument that gets recorded. Well, I was the last because usually they record to the drummer. Well, I had to record everything else. So, but that was cool because that album came out in Japan, and at that time grunge was still going, and even Japan, where melodic rock, which is what that was so popular. It didn't sell enough for us to be able to tour there, but I could sit there and go, okay, now I have a record that came out in Japan, so that was cool. And as a matter of fact, over the last few months, anybody that goes to my YouTube page, I have a playlist for that whole record. Me and the other guys in the band, John especially, did videos for all the songs on that record because it's been 30 years and it's been sitting around forgotten. And it's a great record. So if you like Dokken and you like extreme and kind of 80s, 90s kind of melodic metal, you'll love the record. It's a great record. I'm really proud of my drumming on it. So I did that, and then you could sit there and go, okay. Then I started doing stuff with Lou in 2004. I recorded some demos for him because he needed to re-record some of the old Foreigner songs for promo purposes. He didn't have the license to use the original Foreigner music, so I got a call to do that. And then a couple of years later, I got a call to go practice with him. Then a couple of years later, I got a call to sub for his brother in 3 days' notice. They had a gig in California, and his brother ended up in the hospital. And because I had been in a tribute band with his nephew, actually,
Oh,
um, I got the call to go play with Lou, and that's the first time I played with Lou. And then 5 years later, I got the call to be in the band permanently, and so so it's like little tiny things, and I got to be with Lou for like 3 years, traveled all around, did a bunch of cool stuff with him. And then I got to be the camp counselor at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp once. 2018, I did that. And then Nelson called in 2019 to do scrap metal. And then 3 years ago, he's called me on and off, but then 3 years ago, I subbed for them. Again, I actually playing in Nelson. And then last year I played with them again and supposedly got the gig. I've been playing with them, but their other drummer, David, is still in the mix somewhere. So, you add all that up and it's like, well, that's cool. Well, that's cool. Well, that's cool. Well, that's cool. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people don't even get to square one with any of that. So,
I know. That's why I was like, come on. I think maybe you're just a little humble.
well, I guess it just depends on, and it's not false modesty or whatever. I mean, I'm just a regular dude. Nobody knows who I am. I've gotten lucky, and people like my drumming. I mean, when we just did the Monsters of Rock cruise, um, literally last week, I got guys like Dave Meniketti from Y&T, Kelly Kagi from Night Ranger, guys like that give me compliments on my playing. They saw Nelson, they saw me play, and there's nothing cooler than getting guys that people know compliment your playing. So that's really kind of cool, getting exposure. And I'm not going to sit there and say it isn't enjoyable because of course it is, but to me, I'm just a dude. I just got lucky, and hopefully I got more stuff to do.
Just
We'll
a
see.
dude.
Just a dude.
I think all musicians that I've met are just a dude. They might think they're special, but really they're just a dude.
Just a dude. That should be a t-shirt. Just a dude. Screw all that pronoun shit. I'm just a
At
dude.
the end of the day, they're just a dude.
Right.
Because I'll be honest, I grew up in Webster, and I actually worked at the Holt Road Wegmans, and Lou Graham used to go in my line like
Oh,
every
sure.
week, and he'd wear the scarf, and he'd wear a hat, he'd wear a trench coat, and all the women would be like, ooh and odd because they know by his voice when you go to order food or when he, walk around the store to speak. Or just because it'd be like 89 degrees out, he's wearing like a trench coat, glasses, a hat, a scarf. Everybody was like, they knew it was him. But every week come in my line, everybody would gush like, oh, he was in your line. Isn't that so cool? I'm like, whatever. He's just a dude. I didn't
He's the
care.
most regular guy. I mean, he talk about not a rock star. He comes from Gates, so we know, salt of the earth, blue collar,
Yeah.
just a regular guy. There's no air of rock star. Excuse me, I had to burp. Sorry. There's no rock star stuff with that guy. Just a really nice guy. And I've played with guys that have egos like this, that are full of themselves, narcissistic assholes. Lou is not that.
No,
So,
he was always very, I mean, I think he just wanted to be in peace, and I gave him
oh
peace.
yeah.
So that
Well,
worked out because
there you
I
go.
just didn't care. Like every time you come in, I would know, but I just didn't care because at the end of the day, I get it. Like you just want to live your life and not
Yeah, I
have
just
to
want to
have
get my
people.
bananas and my freaking English muffins and leave me alone,
I know. And Wegmans is so great. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I got a funny story real quick. We were
Yeah.
uh we were in Pennsylvania, and we pulled to a gas station near where we were playing, and some guy had a hot rod there. And Lou loves cars, as everybody in Rochester here knows. And but the guy couldn't start his car back after he filled it up with gas. And so we all got out. Lou got out. We pushed the car out of the gas pump area, popped the hood up. Lou goes into the store, starts buying some stuff to get the car going. So they got the hood up. You got Lou leaning over, fixing the guy's car. I whip out my phone because I had to film it because it was hilarious. This guy had no clue who was fixing his car. Not a clue. And Lou got his car running because Lou's a car guy. And off we went. Off that guy went. I actually posted it on my social media within the last few months. And it was just hilarious because I'm dying, and this guy doesn't have a clue who fixed his car. Although he's heard the guy on the radio a million times. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I do. Well, he doesn't have that. Well, he doesn't have the atypical look either. He looks very normal.
Well, nowadays, I mean, he doesn't look like ever since he got sick and then, had to deal with all the health issues. He doesn't look like he used to. So he doesn't look like the real skinny rock star he used to be. It's not his fault. Well, I mean, he's a lot older now too.
That,
But
yeah, but I'm just saying, like, some people, they come out and they're just like this, they got this rock star look
not him.
24/7. No, he
Not him.
looks like a normal person.
Right.
And I think a lot of his, maybe a lot of what drew people to him was the fact that he always kind of looked more like a normal person rather than a rock star,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so what is your favorite? I'm gonna just get into some different questions. So what is your favorite band that you ever toured with?
Um, well, that's a toughie. I mean, probably the coolest time I think I ever had, although I had a disaster in the middle of the show, was we opened up for Bad Company out in California 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
that was awesome because that was on a huge, that was the big time. That was a big stage, stuff like Lou used to play when he was in Foreigner. So back to a really big stage with, I mean, Bad Company, Paul Rogers. I mean, that was great. We supposedly were up for touring, doing like a tour with them. For whatever reason, I don't know if Lou was up to touring because Lou doesn't tour. He goes out like most bands now. You do weekends. You fly in, you do 2-3 dates, and then you go home, and then you go back out on the weekend. But that one show that was really cool. I broke my bottom snare head like 2 songs into our set. That was a lot of fun. In front of 18,000 people. All of a sudden, it's like, whoops. But we did some stuff with Loverboy, a couple of festivals, and an MTV cruise with Loverboy. Those guys are really cool. Night Ranger just on the Monsters of Rock cruise. Those guys were kind of taking care of us. And Nelson, their whole crew, the whole band, the whole crew, really, really nice down to earth people, would do anything for you. You could tell they're a family. They're all together. There's no egos, issues. Everybody's in it for the team.
Yeah,
So that whole organization, that band, those guys are really nice. Yeah. So there's a couple answers.
I love that. No, no, thank you. And so what are some challenges of being a fill-in drummer?
Well, a fill-in drummer, yeah. So I've had to do that with Lou, and I've had to do that with Nelson. Usually, it's in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like you're in the band and know the material. A lot of times, it's like, oh shit, we need somebody tomorrow. Can you do it? In Lou's case,
Hmm.
it was 3 days. Now, luckily, prior to that, I had been in a foreigner tribute band, like I said, with Lou's nephew, and Lou's nephew was the son of his drummer. Lou's drummer most of the time has been his brother Ben, so Ben had a son named Peter, and he sang in our local foreigner band in Rochester about 25 years ago or so. So I knew the foreigner material, and so I could easily slide right in. I might have had to learn two other songs I didn't know and just kind of get the endings of the songs like they did. But generally, like with Nelson, I had to learn all their stuff. So when you're a sub, it's like you have a limited amount of time to learn it, and get your act together. So that's probably the toughest thing. And you're getting into a situation with people you don't know, you know, and that's tough because you don't know if they're jerks or cool or whatever, So and you're on the spot. That's also a tough thing because it's like, all eyes are on you. You better perform because you want to get called back, and not that you're out to steal somebody's gig, but they might end up liking you better than the guy they have. You don't know. That's the risk of having to be subbed out. Like when
Yeah.
my youngest son graduated from high school back when I was playing with Lou, and it is as bad as this may sound to say, I had to think about it for a second because it's like, well, I'm losing a lot of money. All right, no big deal. I'll always get more money, but I could lose my gig to a sub. And but it's my son's graduation, and I chose the right thing to do and go to my son's graduation. But you always have to have that in the back of your head. Like you could lose your gig to a sub, but going into the gig as a sub, you could maybe get the gig too. So you want to make sure you got your act together. You got to be a cool person to get along with. You got to stay positive. There's a lot of things that are involved, because if you show up and you're a moron or you're a jerk, they don't want to be around that kind of guy. If you show up and you're unprepared, they don't want to be around that kind of guy. It just there's a lot of variables. If you can't even get on a plane on time, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Like you got to be able to go to the airport, have your passport, get to a destination. You know what I mean? There's a lot involved with it. So
No, I get it because I studied in photography and videography, mostly in like advertising. So you're talking about big productions,
yeah.
and yeah, you gotta be a cool hang, but you gotta work hard, and so I do get it.
Mhm.
It's ideally everybody should be giving 110%
Yeah.
and
You're on the
giving that
spot.
good hang. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh well, always.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you handle any sort of setbacks, like when you had to deal with your band coming apart and when it did? How do
Yeah.
you manage that?
Well, I mean, it's tough because, you have this dream, it's like, and you take a step forward. I mean, I've had a lot of setbacks. For as many cool things I mentioned, there's been equally a number of things that didn't work out that could have, right? And you try to learn, that's just part of the deal. That's what happens. I mean, that's life anyways. You never get it. Not everything goes your way. You're always going to have cool things, and then through your own fault or not, something bad will happen. I guess the only thing you can do as you get older and wiser is you try and learn from it. Like, what did I do? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? How can I prevent it from happening again? Or if I had nothing to do with that, at least what's the best way to react to it? Do I sit here and bum out about it and be negative about it? Or do I try to let it go and just move forward? It's tough. I mean, it's not easy. If you can't get bummed out about bad things setting you back, then you're not human. There's something wrong with you because everybody has that. But you can't sit there and worry about it forever. Otherwise, you're never going to go anywhere. So, you just take it. And as more bad crap happens, the more you get used to it. And believe me, if I had enough of things that coulda, shoulda, woulda, you know, but they just didn't. And they were cool things too. It's, whatever. That's how it works.
It is how it works. I mean, every time I apply for I'll apply for so many things that I might get one response.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's really a part of like, or something will, like you get a go and then last second,
Mm-hmm.
it falls apart. And I always like to look at it as for every opportunity I lose, I gain two that are even better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That's,
it's
that's
it's
the
a good
juju.
way to look at it.
That's the
It's
juju
a
I
whole
put out there.
yeah. Well, I mean, you got to be as positive as you can. Certain things aren't in your control, so you have to accept that. But you can accept how you react to it, and that's what you got to work at, right? So, you know, hopefully something better comes. Usually something does. I mean, there's that age old question: do things happen for a reason? You know what I mean? And so you just kind of go with it.
No, that's exactly how I like to look at it though, is
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to be, and it was going to be a worse off situation. I just like to hear other people say
Mm-hmm.
it in their
Well, I'll
own.
give you a perfect example. Here's an example. So 2000, well, it doesn't matter, 18 or 19, whatever it was. I had previously met the drummer whose name is Jay Shellen. He's in Yes now. He's the drummer for Yes.
Oh, cool.
And um I met him when I was with Lou in Vegas and got along great. We traded phone numbers and stuff. And he called me and or texted me and said, "Hey, um, he was also in a thing in Vegas, which was pretty big at the time, a show called Rating the Rockfall. And it's all these all-star guys that play in Vegas. It's this big show. Whoever's in town comes in and does the whatever part necessary. And he couldn't continue with them for a while because he was going to go on tour with Yes. So he calls me, says, "Hey, you want my spot?" Sure. I mean, there's big people, big name people. We're talking like, you know, Huey McDonald, the bass player for Bon Jovi, is in this. Doug Aldrich, the guitar player from Whitesnake, and I mean, you guys of that caliber are doing this show. And so for a month's time, I was getting ready to move, buying new clothes because I needed to upgrade my wardrobe for Vegas and buying some new gear and was all excited. And my wife at the time was really pissed, but I was like, well, I can't turn this down. We'll make it happen. I can't say no to this. And so I was this close to moving for about a month's time. It was going to happen, and then I get a call from the production manager, and I talked to him, and he goes, "Well, if if Jay's quitting, if he can't continue, it's not his job to give to name the replacement. If you're just subbing for him for a few months, sure, but it's not his job to name you as the new guy in the band." And I was like, "Oh," and guess what? They gave it to Blas Elias, the drummer from Slaughter, who happened to be a backup guy at the time for that Rating the Rockfall. And rightfully so. He was the backup guy. He already lived in Vegas, so why wouldn't you give it to him? But for a month's time, I was going to be the dude, or so I thought. So Jay had led me to believe. And I was, crushed. I was like, well, that really sucks. But guess what? A few years later, COVID happened and everything shut down.
Oh,
So so, what would have happened to me if I got that gig? I would have been stranded in Vegas with nothing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
I do.
temporarily, it sucked temporarily, but in the long run, it worked out because, man, that would have been bad.
It hurt.
So,
Definitely, I would say that would have hurt.
yeah. So, talk about good. It's a good thing I didn't get that gig.
Yeah,
So,
no,
there you go.
like the whole scenario, both ends, it hurts. It hurts when, because the expectations, I find, that is one of the biggest. There's two things that steals your joy in life. It's comparison and
Mm-hmm.
expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but really, and that's what's bad about social media. It's just you sit there and everybody just puts their best on social media. Nobody puts their regular humdrum crap, that makes them look bad anyways. I mean, some people sit there and go, "Here, look what I'm eating for breakfast." Who cares? But nobody's going to put anything on social media that makes them look bad, right? So, and we know this, but we still watch and we still scroll and we're like, "Oh, I wish I looked like that, or I wish I could play drums like that, or I wish I was doing that." And that's really terrible. And I used to teach drums for many years too. And one of the things I would tell people is you got to be yourself. You can't be another whoever. You can't be another John Bonham. You're not going to be another Neil Peart. You're not going to be another Eddie Van Halen. Don't try. Try to learn their stuff a little bit, but you got to make your own thing, your own identity, because that's nobody's you. You know what I mean? You're you. That's what you have to sell yourself as is you. If I tried to sell myself copying somebody else, nobody needs another guy on YouTube playing John Bonham. We don't need another guy on YouTube playing Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. I don't care how good you are at it. There's a 5 million people that already play it.
I
Good for
love
you.
that. I love that. People are always hitting me up and they're like, "How do you do what you do?" And I'm like, I have a 200,000 degree and 10 years of experience." And they're like, "Teach me." I'm like, "Just come up with your own creative voice, please. Stop trying to
Yeah,
steal mine."
yeah.
I
Well, you could
But then they
teach
get
it, but
offended.
they're not gonna do it like you anyways, right? I could learn every John Bonham lick in the world. Let's say, but I don't hit the drum like he does, so it's not gonna sound like him.
Yeah,
And like I said, there's too many people copying everybody else. So, like you said, comparison and things like that just really unless you find a way to positively turn it into motivation, that's a different story because you want to be motivated, but you don't want to get egos involved. You don't want to get jealousy involved. You don't want to get anything like that involved because I just spit on my computer. Sorry about that. You know what I'm saying? It's just it ruins everything. So sorry about
sorry. I don't even know you did it until you announced it. You're apologizing to your computer.
that. Sorry, computer. I just saw a thing go, and I was just like, "Whoa, there it goes." Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, we're good.
Anyways, what do you do? What do you do for self-care after you do a big tour? Because there's so much like highs and lows. Even I experienced this, when like you have a lot of work and then there's quiet, or even like you have like a really big experience and then the next day you're like, damn, I wish I could be that doing that right now. And then because
Yeah,
it really does a lot on your nervous system and
yeah,
and just like your emotions. So how do you manage yourself when everything is done and settled and it's just you again at home at the end of
right.
a long tour? What do you do for self-care after?
Well, first of all, I've never done long tours. It's always like, like the last thing was a week on the boat or something like that, or long weekends. It's the same idea as what you're talking about, but I've never been
Yeah.
out on a really long tour. But I don't know. I mean, I'm old, so I'm used to. I don't know. I like to think I'm a little wiser, a little smarter, so I don't get too ramped up for really big things, and I try not to get really low for regular things. So I don't know. It's I've been doing it a while. I just the good thing. I mean, the good thing about coming home is you sleep in your own bed. I eat better food. I can go back to walking every day and getting my exercise and getting plenty of sunshine. Um, I love taking walks. And anybody who looks at my social media now over the last couple few years, I take a lot of pictures of things. I really enjoy doing that and someday I may get into actually selling some stuff, and it's just me and a phone, but I do a halfway decent job of that. And people are like, you should sell these. You should do. I would buy them if you sold them. And to me, it's just I don't even think about it because I just do it. So that makes me happy, just doing stuff like that. I don't go out to bars. I don't really drink. I did on the boat, but other than that, I don't really drink. Um, so I'm kind of asocial in a way because I don't enjoy that kind of environment anymore. I did that, done that years ago. So I'd rather be out with some friends or just hanging out by myself. I just don't go out and party. I've never abused myself like that. And as I've gotten older, I just, take a lot of supplements, try to eat better, buy as much organic food as I can. I walk as much as I can. I get as much sun as I can. I like silence. I like reading. Um, I listen to music, but not a lot. I listen to more podcasts of interesting topics to me than I listen to music. Depends on the mood I'm in. So I do stuff like that. Just keeps me kind of sane, you know. And I I don't have a lot of friends, and those that I do are close because I kind of pick and choose who I associate with, not in a snobby way, but I'm not one of those people that needs a lot of friends on the periphery to feel validated. I'd rather have a few people that I like, that I get along with, that are close, that are valid friends, you know, than having to be social with this guy and social with that guy and be there and be at this party and do all that kind of stuff. I'm not into that kind of stuff. I don't need that. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I'd rather be myself.
I
So
do. I'm very much the introverted extrovert. I need a lot of my alone time so I can be on when I'm around people.
there you go. Sure.
So I do understand it. That sounds very similar, that, that introverted, extroverted, you know.
Yeah. I got to do that on the boat last week for the first time in I haven't been to a rock bar in probably 5 or 6 years around here. Nobody will see me in a bar watching a band or hanging out. It's just not my type of environment, to be honest with you. But it was fun on the boat because there's like 35 famous bands playing in addition to our band, and I finally was like, okay, I can handle this. You know, a lot of cool people, a lot of famous musicians I was hanging out with and exchanging phone numbers with, and having a few cocktails, and I let myself enjoy that. You know, and now it's back to home and me. So, but I like that too. You know, after a while, I was like, I can't wait to get home and away, just to yeah, I can only handle so much of that stuff, and I hate traveling. Traveling sucks. I'll tell you that much, man.
Really?
Getting on a plane, oh, I hate it. Hate it. It sucks. They pay us. It's the famous saying. They pay me to travel. They don't pay me to play. Traveling stinks. I'll tell you that.
I love traveling.
Do you? No, no. Well, let me take it back. I like going to different places. I don't like being on a plane. You know what I mean? I don't like airports.
Yeah,
That's a pain in the ass. But yeah,
that's
all right,
different.
right. That's what I mean. That I don't like traveling. If I had all the money in the world, I'd be traveling everywhere. There's so many places I'd love to go. You know. So I'm rephrasing what I said.
I was a little insulted. Like, like traveling. That's like my favorite thing to do.
You corrected me. See, you corrected me.
So, what was your biggest inspiration into music? I know the whole drumming thing was kind of incidental. It's just something that got pulled out of you. But what artist
Mhm.
was your biggest inspiration?
Well, the big thing was in 1976. I was 8 years old, and Paul Lind there's a guy named Paul Lind, which you probably don't remember. He was a famous guy. I don't know if you even know if he was an actor, just one of those famous people. And he had his own Halloween show called the Paul Lind Halloween special. Obviously, he's Paul Lind, and Kiss was on there, and I that's when I first saw Kiss, and I was just like, holy crap, what is that? You know, it just like it blew my mind. Like it's like people 10 years older than me, it was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. That was their generation's thing. Well, my age, it was Kiss, and for me, it was watching them on Paul Lind's Halloween thing, and that's what ruined me. From there on out, I was in rock bands and into rock and roll music. Before that, my mom played Neil Diamond and Osmond records, and then after that, I was like, nope, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Rush. I was off. I was off to the races.
I was an MTV kid. I grew up on
Mhm.
original MTV, whereas MTV.
Well,
But
that's good. That's
yeah,
good.
that corrupted me so badly.
Yeah.
I was, it was just something you'd have on in the background. You do things, you have MTV on in the background,
I
hang out
remember
with
when they used to
people.
say, get MTV in stereo, call your cable company. And I remember my dad, they were tolerant, but he was like, no way are we doing that. Or so, I remember him something like saying, that's never going to happen, because the TVs were big wooden consoles with one speaker on them. And, it wasn't an entertainment thing. But yeah, MTV back in the day, at least they played, when they were playing music. It was great.
It was great. Yeah, the whole I want my MTV.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it was just so, and that's probably where I got a lot of my variances of my what I mean, I have like what I like, right? But it varies because of that, I think, because they would just play. thing. So I don't know.
Well,
So
they had so few videos to play at the time that they had videos from all over. There wasn't, at least early on, they didn't have set categories. It's like whatever video somebody had, they would play it because there weren't many to play. So,
yeah, no, I get that. So what is a message you would like to give to any new artists they're up and coming that'd like to make it into the music industry?
well, there's plenty. Well, one would be what I said earlier about being yourself and not trying to copy other people, um, or compare. Figure out your thing that sets you apart from other people. That's what's really going to sell it. There isn't
Mhm.
another you. There's only you,
Yeah.
and so figure out where what makes you different. So that would be the first thing. Practice. If you're a musician, you have to practice. Play out as much as you can. It's harder to do that. It's really hard to make money at it. But you could be the best drummer, guitar player, whatever. If you're in your bedroom, that's great, but who cares? If you can't get in front of an audience and play and entertain people, it doesn't matter how good you are. So you have to be able to, get out there and start doing it and learn the ropes, learn what happens when something goes wrong, learn what happens when people say, boo, you stink. Learn what happens when
Cool.
some drunk dude spills his beer all over your guitar pedals. I mean, you have to get the experience of playing and learn how to interact with people and be a team player in the bands you're in. Nobody wants to hire a guy that's a jerk or an egotist or whatever. You
No.
have to be a team player. So
Yeah.
you can bail on anything you want. If I'm in a band with somebody, I don't like them, I don't like the way they treat me, I can quit, right? But then I got to sit there and go, okay, well, what am I missing out on if I quit? Is my own self dignity and my own self worth saying, fuck you, I'm not dealing with your bullshit anymore? Or do I suck it up because there still might be something in it for me that I might gain? It's a tricky
Interesting.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that in life. You got to, do you move on? Or, some people just bail at any, like the slightest little thing they bail. And sometimes you'll shoot yourself in the foot because if you just hung in it a little longer, it might have paid off. But, you have to tell yourself how much abuse am I going to put up with before, I'd say, screw you.
How much
So
abuse you, I guess it's how much of a masochist are you?
trust me, I've been through it plenty of times, and my boundaries are getting narrower and narrower as to what I'm going to put up with and what I won't. I don't, as you get older, you develop these things, and as you've been married, you'll, you'll develop those things too. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
life.
I just look at it as I can only control me and my intentions with
Mhm.
everything I do. So I value integrity and honor and esteem, and I like to always go forth with that, you know. So if I know
Mhm.
my intentions are pure, then that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yep. That you only have you to answer for, right? So
Absolutely.
people come and go.
Absolutely.
People come and go in life. I view life as like a bus. You get on a bus. Some people get on for a little while and they ride with you, and then they get off, and they may even come back later, right? They
Yeah.
might get on the ride later. I've had a
Mm-hmm.
few people in my life that get on and get off and get on and get off, and hopefully some of them are off for good, but you
Yep.
never know. They might
I
come back
do.
on.
I
So,
do. And I've always had the mantra of just like I am my only constant. There's
right?
I am the only constant. Everybody ebbs and flows, comes and goes. And and
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with yourself, you know?
Right.
And you have to do again, it goes back to that honor and esteem because
Mhm.
you have to live with yourself. Nobody else does. And everybody
Right.
just comes, literally, I've experienced everybody just comes and goes. It
Right.
literally. And if you're trying to appease everybody else, you are literally just self-abandoning.
Well, exactly. You see, the problem is, because you just said it. If you're always doing things to please other people or to get approval from them or to make them happy, but you're suffering your own happiness or whatever as a result of that,
Yeah.
first of all, you're never going to make everybody happy. It's just never going to happen. So you're already losing the battle. And so you have to do what's good for you, but not selfishly. You can't at others' expenses. It doesn't give people the right to be a jerk just because you want to do something, or you know what I mean. And I don't. I can tell so I don't have to tell you this. But yeah, I mean, you have to be honest to yourself because you have to answer for you at the end of the day. When whoever you meet, whenever you die, wherever you go, if the judgment day comes and says, "Okay, explain this to me. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do?" I mean, whatever. I don't know, but can you sit there and honestly say you tried, you did your best, you were the best person you could be, or are you going to sit there and do what you did on Earth and blame everybody else because you're just a victim? And too many people just want to be a victim because if you're a victim, that absolves you of self responsibility. You don't, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a victim. I'm innocent. It's so easy for people to be a victim, and it's a cop out. And
It really is the it's yeah, the inability to be accountable and the
Mhm.
I'll eat my own shit any day. I, I, I will be the first person to be like, "Yep, I dropped the ball.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, sorry."
Well, that's the first thing is to be able to admit you're wrong, and I don't have any problem with that. I'm wrong. Guess what? I'm going to be wrong a whole lot more before I die. So, everybody out there who knows me and deals with me, it's going to happen again. I'm not going to try to be wrong. I'm not going to try to do things bad, but I'm human and I will fuck up. So, here's to
Absolutely.
that. Cheers. I'm
Here,
drinking my own iced coffee that I brew. So, there we go.
that's this one.
Oh, there you go.
Coffee, water,
Double fisted.
coffee, water.
Sure.
I don't drink. I hardly ever
Good.
drink. So
Yeah, me too.
coffee and water.
Good.
That's about it. So what are some projects you are currently working on?
Well, the for music mainly just whatever comes forward from Nelson. I don't know of anything particular coming up. I know they're working on things, but specifically, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. I know they got a new record coming out very shortly, so hopefully something comes out of that. And I met a bunch of people on the boat doing the rock cruise, and I mean Nelson really doesn't play a lot, right? Um, I think last year maybe the band played 5 or 6 shows total. Maybe I don't know, maybe a
Really?
little more. Yeah, because those
Really?
guys do their own acoustic
Yeah.
stuff, and then they have their show for their dad. Ricky Nelson remembered. So they're juggling like, and they have a whole Christmas thing they do at Christmas time. So the band Nelson doesn't play a lot. So I'm open to other stuff. When it fits my schedule. I don't want to sit home doing nothing other than my regular daily stuff. So we'll see. Hopefully, like I said, I met a bunch of guys on the boat. We traded numbers, and just when you think nothing happens, somebody calls out of the blue like that. I mean, Nelson came along. Not I figured it came along through being with Lou Graham and connections through that. I figured that's how Gunnar Nelson found me, and it turns out he found me out of all places on social media, but of all places on LinkedIn, not on Instagram, not on Facebook,
Wow.
but I do every Friday. I do a drum video called "Name That Tune," where I just play,
Yes.
right. And
Yes.
he saw it one year, like way back in 2018, and he messaged me on LinkedIn and said to call him, and they needed a drummer for scrap metal, that the All Star thing they were doing, and we got to talking, and that's how that all worked out on LinkedIn. Like, who would have thought? Crazy. You never
I
know.
I've heard some rumors that LinkedIn is kind of a big deal.
It's more
I
professional.
struggle. I struggle, but I've heard that it can be quite a bit of a big deal.
Well,
I keep hearing those rumors.
yeah, the people are more busy. You should do if you're not on it. You should. It's
I
more
I am
professional.
definitely.
Yeah. Can you hear the weed whacker out the window? Do I need to close that or? Oh, he stopped. Sorry, I left the window open. It's so nice. There's some guys out there doing the lawn.
It, I'm very much I'm very ADHD and I've learned to hyper focus. So I didn't even hear it until you said something. I'm that bad. I hyper
Okay.
focus so hard I didn't even hear it. And then we'll just wrap it up. Um,
Okay.
I'm gonna just say thank you so much for your time and
Sure.
for the time you took to meet with me today and your consideration. Um, this for me was just I just thoroughly enjoyed talking with you today and learning more about your story. And I only hope that this interview reaches not only the right audience, but moves them and and really helps them on their journey as they develop and grow as musicians. Because this is meant to be like
Mhm.
an inspirational series that like
Yeah.
really teaches people the real ins and outs, not just the highs. It's all about the hills and the valleys. So I
Yeah.
always appreciate when people can be candid and real and authentic rather than just everything's
Mhm.
awesome, because it's not.
Yeah, it's not me.
It's not. It's really not. um
Yeah. Anybody who tells you otherwise is full of shit. That's just saying. You know, they're full of shit because everything isn't great all the time for everybody, and they're not as great as they say they are. You know what I mean? It's and you'll get a whole lot smarter and get further in life once you start reading somebody's bullshit. You have a good bullshit meter. You know what I mean?
I do. It's like I feel it in my bones. I'm one of those people. I feel it in my bones.
Good. All you
Yeah.
gotta do is look in their eyes, and mine are watery from being sick. But other than that, it's not glassy from any other substance. It's just
It's
getting over
more
being.
like a spidey sense. It's like, ah.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Your gut is always right. That's my hair. Your gut is always right. You know what I mean? It's
All right. On that note, I will keep in touch.
okay.
This was so fun.
All right, we'll catch you later.